Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whoever you are, wherever you are, whenever it is for you. For me, it is just past midnight on Saturday, June the 7th, 2025, which makes this the news for Friday, June the 6th, day 1199 of Vladimir Putin's war of aggression against the people of Ukraine. How do you do? I'm Peter Alexievich, and this is the Live at 5 from Kyiv, coming to you live from this major European capital currently under siege. I rebooted the router and I reconnected to the Wi-Fi in the hopes that that would clear the lagging issues up. But guys, yesterday we saw the second largest drone strike against Kyiv in the history of the war. And we are having some problems in town today. There's some bandwidth availability concerns. There's electricity and rolling brownouts. So all of these things are real. Seems good now. Good. Hey, Roy Daniels. Hey, Lil Red. Hey, Darlene. Hey, Lars. This channel, there is a community that has built up around this channel without whom the channel would not exist. That includes all of the Patreon supporters, the board of directors, the TikTok subscribers, and of course, all the live sponsors. Lola K was a first-time live sponsor last night. And tonight, our sponsor is Dawn. So everybody thank Dawn. Thank you very much, Holly. I appreciate that. Hey, Weibo. Hey, Bjorn. Sweden is in the house. So Sweden is in the house. So Bjorn, dude, dig this shit, man. In the last 72 hours, after 3 years of war, the Ukrainians have managed to destroy at least 2, maybe 3 Iskander missile launchers, plus damage another 1 or maybe 2. And I'm wondering if it's because of those Swedish AWACS that you guys sent to Ukraine, right? 3 years they haven't been able to track down those Iskander platforms. Now they seem to be able to, and to strike them. So I don't know whether it's related to the surveillance aircraft from Sweden or if they've just got special operations forces back in Bryansk behind the lines, calling in the positions of these things. Because we know that there's been special operations forces in Bryansk, and that's where both of these missile launchers were destroyed. So it has been quite a week. It has been quite a week. The fallout from Operation Spiderweb is still presenting itself. Russia seems to be devouring, like a snake eating its own tail. They seem to be devouring their own economy and each other in a paranoid chaos brought on by Operation Spiderweb. There is a purge going on inside the country. The FSB has arrested all of the drivers, the truck drivers, except one who was murdered by a mob of angry Russians. Holy shit, right? Guy's a patsy. He just got hired to drive the truck, and his countrymen literally tore him apart in the street. Some of the trucks are backed up 22, 25 kilometers. It was a lynch mob. That's exactly what it was, Nightshade. It was a lynch mob. The Russians can blame whoever they want for Operation Spiderweb. It doesn't change the fact that it was executed. It was executed with drones and a bunch of Russian-speaking Ukrainians. Come on, give me a break. Nobody can infiltrate Russia the way that the Ukrainians can. Ethnically, language-wise, culturally, nobody can infiltrate Russia the way the Ukrainians can. It's just that simple. They did not need any help for this. They didn't need J.D. Vance and DJ TJ's permission. Give me a break. It is astonishing to me, the hypocrisy that comes from the Russian Federation, daring to call a military operation against military aircraft on military airfields a terrorist attack, and then turn around and with no self-awareness at all, last night strike schools, hospitals, homes, residential buildings, civilian power infrastructure. It is astonishing to me that they could try to live this hypocrisy, try to make their lies truth. Ain't gonna happen. It's just not for any of us outside of Russia who have access to more than one data source. Oh man, I'll tell you, some of these Americans that are inside Russia, look, this war is not going to end Ukraine because the Ukrainians know that they are fighting for a life worth living and that if they lose, it will be the end of Ukraine. So they literally cannot lose, and they're not going to let themselves lose. It's not going to happen. This war will end Russia, and it will be Russia's doing. No two ways about it. No two ways about it. And we see that, the way that mob devoured that poor truck driver. Do you know the FSB has now arrested the people who own the warehouse that the Ukrainians rented to assemble the drones in? Right, just some dumb people own a warehouse. They rented it to somebody. They didn't know that it was, how would you know that it was being used for covert operations inside Russia? Those people are staring down a firing squad right now. This paranoid chaos is going to spread. It seems, and let's not forget, we don't know if all the containers are accounted for. We saw 8 in the picture. We're pretty sure 7 or 8 were used. Does it mean that there are only 8? I don't think we know the answer to that. There could be another 16 containers planted all around Russia, and nobody knows about it. And right now, everybody is looking hard at every container. There's something like half a dozen checkpoints. If you want to drive from Murmansk to Rostov as a truck driver, you're going to sit in, I believe, 5 different checkpoints and be checked. Each stop costing you 8 to 12 hours right now. That is going to constrain the economy. Look, we live in a just-in-time economy. You go into the grocery store and it's full of fresh produce. That's because everybody that comes in that day is going to buy everything there. And the expectation is that new fresh produce will come tomorrow. At the very most, we'll be waiting for bananas till Wednesday. Some shit like that. That just-in-time economy is now threatened, not merely by sanctions and the import controls that constrain Russia's economy from normal growth, but now from the internal security mechanisms of the checkpoints and searching the container vehicles. That's a problem. That's going to be a problem. Exactly, hardly. How about you're a dairy farmer, right? Now, most of that gets consumed locally, so that shouldn't be a problem, but you get the point, right? Especially because now we're getting reports that these trucks are running out of gas while they're sitting at the checkpoints. Now, somebody's got to go find gas, bring it back, get the thing restarted. If it's a refrigerated truck, you're in trouble. You're in trouble. It's going to be a lot of sour milk. When we think about the outcomes, the repercussions of Operation Spiderweb, Ukraine hasn't merely inconvenienced the Russians. They have kicked one of the legs of Russia's nuclear triad out from under them. Kicked it right out from under them. And that's why Putin is pissed. Now, the Western media is all agog today at the huge I saw one headline, biggest drone strike of the war. Bullshit. Bullshit. Last night was not the biggest strike of this war. I have been through many, many nights like last night. Everybody here has been. It was not retaliation for Operation Spiderweb. Or if it was, that's pretty fucking piss poor. I'll tell you right now. Because Operation Spiderweb was a strategic strike against Russia's nuclear arsenal. Its strategic heavy bomber fleet that regularly rains death down on Ukrainian civilians, like we saw last night in a double tap strike that killed 3 firemen here. Right? That's who died in this strike. First responders. And unfortunately, one other person. Millions. 40 missiles at $1 million apiece. That's $40 million right there. The money spent last night to very little effect, except to knock out the power across the river here, unalive some innocent first responders, put a school out of commission, Institute of Economics here in Kyiv, and those kinds of inconveniences. Now, of course, the tragedy of the lost life is a different story. But when one thinks of the scale of this attack, and today there are 4 families in mourning, as the person who planned this attack, you should look yourself in the face in the mirror and know that you failed, that you have not intimidated the Ukrainian people. The Ukrainian people are not intimidated by the Russians. Every one of these strikes strengthens Ukrainian resolve to never again be subject under the yoke of Russian oppression. It's not going to happen. Ukraine will not be destroyed by this war. Russia will destroy itself in its vain and desperate attempts to stop Ukraine. And when the orgy of violence that comes, as it always does when dictators fall, I'll tell you something. I look forward to seeing those last TikTok videos from some of these guys like Yaroslav and that son of a bitch that's down in Krasnodar. No. Their future is already written. They will be the first ones with their backs up against the wall when this thing goes to hell. And it's going to go to hell. There's no two ways about it. Okay, what else is going on today? So it is the 81st anniversary of the Normandy invasion. It is the 10-month anniversary. Thanks, the freaky Dane. The freaky Dane. Sorry, I'm just remembering a few years back, it was 2002, February 2002, my ex-wife and I were in Amsterdam, and we met a couple of Danish girls who partied with us and hung out with us for a couple days. And Freaky Dane is a label you could put on those two, let me tell you right now. Anyway. Hey, Eli. How you doing? So it's the 81st anniversary of D-Day. It is the 10-month anniversary of the Kursk incursion. 10 months ago today, August 6th, 2024, the Ukrainians went into Russia And for 10 months, Ukrainian troops have woken up and gone to bed in control of Russian territory, much to the shame and humiliation of Vladimir Putin and the Kremlin. Huge political win. Now tonight, at this very moment, while we are chatting here, safe in our homes, the guys on the front line in Kursk are advancing with extraordinary determination because they are heavily outnumbered. There's just no two ways about it. But the Russian mill blogger community is freaking out, talking about how the village of Tetkino is basically encircled, how the village of Tetkino is down to just 60 guys from the 56th Paratroopers Regiment. So these are some of Russia's best, the VDV. And there's maybe 60 Russians left in the town. And according to the mill bloggers, like Channel North said, their stomachs and arms are pierced, but they will fight to the last man. And he lamented that. He lamented the fact that they are going to be called upon to be heroes and die in the service of their country rather than being extracted. But it does seem that the Ukrainian game plan is clear. There are 50,000 troops in Kursk ready to support the Sumy incursion, that new front that Russia has opened up north of Sumy in an effort to take the city of Sumy and parts of Sumy Oblast. What do you do about those 50,000 troops? Because you don't have 50,000 troops to take them out, right? You take 18,000 troops, you put them into Tetkino, and you hammer the Russian positions with F-16s. That's what the Ukrainians have been doing. They've been calling in F-16, the glide bombs, the Fab 500s, Fab 1000s. Well, Ukraine's got those too. They're old dumb Soviet bombs, pardon me. It appears that they are being attached to F-16s, and the F-16s are dropping them onto Russian positions, softening up Russian positions to support ground infantry assaults. That's close air support for ground troops from the F-16s. This is a brand new capability of the Ukrainian Air Force that they have developed over the last 10 months since the planes have been here in Ukraine. The goal in Kursk, in Bryansk, and in Belgorod is to pin those Russian troops inside of Russia so that they don't come into Ukraine and cause trouble here. And that's what we're seeing. The Russians have had to move their reserves farther away from the front in an effort to protect them after there were 3 major strikes on troop concentrations last week. Additionally, every reserve group that they send in to try to reinforce Tetkino gets blown up on the way. So no reinforcements reach the place, but Ukraine is constantly grinding down the reserves as they attempt to get to the contact line. And nobody is saying that this is easy. Nobody is saying that the Ukrainians aren't losing men every day in that desperate attempt to pin a much larger force in place. You can be sure that they are. But it's working. They are whittling down that larger force, and you will notice that as of today, the Sumy offensive seems to have come to a grinding halt. All that forward momentum seems to be gone. Now, they could just be waiting for the next batch of reserves. They might be waiting for the engineering troops to come in and help them cross the river because they've come up to a river. It's not clear why they've stopped, but they are stopped for now. We'll see whether or not they ever move again. Like that column, that 41-mile-long column of tanks and trucks that once it got into Ukraine, never moved again. So for those of you that were on the live last night, So for those of you that were on the live last night, you heard a large drone strike begin. Turned out to be a drone and missile strike. It was one of the larger ones of the war. The biggest thing hit in Kyiv was the the CHPP-5. That's a conventional power and thermal power plant located on the left bank of the Dnipro, so across the river from me. The left bank has been suffering all day, rolling brownouts because of the loss of this power generation capacity. And I'm sure that the guys that manage these things are doing everything they can to get that ramped back up. Right. But other than that, I got to tell you guys, and I mean, I hate to say it because I know that there are families in mourning. I know that there are 24 people in the hospital. But it was a beautiful day here in Kyiv. Gorgeous. 85. Thank God for the air conditioning. I made the mistake of turning it off too soon. I thought it would be cooler tonight, and it's just not. It feels like before a thunderstorm when everything is sultry and still. That's what it feels like. Anyway. Gorgeous day. I did some grocery shopping. The market was packed. People were out and about. I walked by the school next to the house. The kids were in the yard at recess, running and laughing and playing like normal kids. It's a big city. They estimate now with the refugee population from the east, which far surpassed the number of refugees that left the country, left Kyiv. There's maybe as many as 4.4 million people here. Now, can anybody tell me how many American cities have a population of over 4.4 million? Does anybody know? How many American cities have a population greater than 4.4 million? Roy Daniels guesses 10. Tony says not many. Roy, would it surprise you to know that we don't even have 10 cities in the United States with 1 million people? At least not the last time I checked. The last time I checked, we only had 9 cities in the United States that had more than 1 million people. Matt says 2. Matt's the closest so far without going over. So the answer is 1. New York City with its 8 million. That's it. San Francisco doesn't even have 1 million people in it. Tony's got it. It's a New Dawn's got it. There's Dawn. She's our sponsor tonight. Say thank you, everybody. Manhattan is only 1/5 of New York City. There are 5 other boroughs. And did the Russians respond? No. No, they did not. Tuzix. We're still waiting for a Russian response. Well, now wait, they might have. Okay, so I don't know where the dude is. I went looking for the message from him in my DMs, and I couldn't find it. Thanks, Omar. But a dude messaged or tagged me in a video the other day, and I didn't respond because I thought it was bullshit. And then he sent me a message and was like, hey, did you see that thing? And I was like, yeah, I saw it, but I think it's bullshit. And he's like, oh, you're probably right. Now, I went looking for the thing today to apologize because it turns out he may have been right. We're not really sure. Dig it. Have you guys seen the videos of what some people are claiming was a failed Oreshnik launch over Kazakhstan? Has anybody seen those videos? I thought it was phony. Steve Kennedy, there you are, pal. So, dude, I thought it was phony. And I actually looked at some of the SpaceX shots over the Caribbean. And I was like, this is definitely the SpaceX stuff superimposed over Kazakhstan, right? this is not an Oreshnik launch. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. Here's why. Some elements of the Russian mill blogger community are saying that it was a failed Oreshnik launch. Now, here's the thing. If that were true, the thing about intermediate range ballistic missiles is that they use the same, they look like, to any observer, an intercontinental ballistic missile, right? The shape of it, the form of it, the speed of it, the trajectory of it. It's built on the RS-26 design. So it looks just like an intercontinental ballistic nuclear missile. When you're going to fire those off, even for testing, you have to let the other nuclear nations know. Because you know Five Eyes is watching Russia all the time. If it detects an IRBM launch, it's indistinguishable from an ICBM launch. So they have to know that it's coming. That would mean that if it was an Oreshnik launch, one of the allies, UK, China, India, France, I don't have any faith that the US is going to give us this information, but the US is certainly one of the countries that would be notified that it was happening. One of them would tell us that there was they would confirm it, that they had warnings from the Russians that they were going to fire this thing off. So I don't know what it was. Is it possible it was a failed Oreshnik launch? It is possible, Steve. You're not wrong, pal. But if it was, one of our allies should be able to confirm that for us. And to the best of my knowledge, we have no confirmation from the SecDefs of any of our allied partners. I would like to know the answer to that. So the reality of the Oreshnik is that it's got about a 50% failure rate out of the tube. It doesn't, it's $120 million oopsie. Corruption stole all our monies. Right? It's $120 million whoopsie. It's completely ineffective. Conceptually, it's bullshit of the first order. And it doesn't do the job. When they hit Dnipro with it, yeah, it was loud, but that was all that anybody in Dnipro said to me when I was there 3 days after it happened. Well, it was a loud night. The mill blogger community was up in arms that it didn't create mass destruction. But it didn't. It didn't. It's a failure. It's a joke. Somebody was threatening in my comments about Oreshnik, and they said, how are you going to stop Oreshnik? And I'm like, you might as well ask me how I'm going to stop Santa Claus or the Tooth Fairy, right? These are not things that are real. They just are in the minds of the demented gremlins in the Kremlin. So yeah, Steve, that was a good one, pal. I still don't have an answer. But I'm going to keep my eyes open looking for more information on that. Okay, what else is going on? There's so much going on. It's just been a crazy, crazy week. I think I did 15 videos today, without even knowing it. One thing after another just kept coming up. And I just kept making videos all day. We had another train derailment. Now, somebody asked about a bridge before, and I don't know if you're talking about the railroad bridges or the Kersh Bridge, so let's talk about bridges real quick. In the last week, in point of fact, immediately before Operation Spiderweb kicked off, we saw Ukraine target Russian logistics in Kursk. We saw we saw a car overpass come down on top of a train. We saw another train derailed, a freight train carrying ammunition and supplies for the troops in Kursk, derailed and its rail bridge blown up. We saw a third train, again, a freight train, a supply train in Lvov, hit at the platform as it was being unloaded. Lots of secondary cook-offs indicating that it was an ammunition car or ammunition train, though it likely had other resources on it as well. And then we also saw down in Melitopol a freight train hit. So the Ukrainians are targeting Russian logistics. Now dig it. Those three bridges that I mentioned first, the one in Bryansk and the two in Kursk, they all happened the same day. What do you think Russia's FSB response to that was? They flooded into Kursk and Bryansk, looking to find the saboteurs. And then what happened the very next morning? All those heavy bombers go boom. It appears that those railroad bridge attacks were timed in part, not merely to hamper Russian logistics, right? An army fights on its stomach. Logistics win and lose wars. So it wasn't just to hamper Russian logistics. It appears to have been an operation designed to distract internal security forces in Russia, draw them out to the far west, away from where all the bombers and the subsequent operation would happen. So it's amazing to watch the Ukrainians work. They are masters. And that strategic drone strike on the heavy bomber fleet will go down in history, right? Oh, hey, guys, it is my 2-year anniversary. I'm like 170 followers from 40,000. It would be deeply meaningful to me right now if you do not follow this channel to please do. There are probably enough people in here that don't follow the channel that we could get to 40,000 with just all of you. If you just would follow the channel, pretty please with sugar on top. Thank you. Thanks, Andrea. Hold on to that thought about uprisings in Russia. We'll talk about that in 1 second. Let's finish the bridge conversation first. So there was the series of bridge strikes that apparently were a distraction ahead of Operation Spiderweb. Then immediately following, hey, Maddie, right? Then immediately following Operation Spiderweb's successful execution, we had the Kerch Bridge hit. Now the Kerch Bridge, now here's the thing. And you know, it bothers me because I mentioned it in the live, but I didn't make a video about it. And then I heard Preston Stewart mention it today, and I'm like, ooh, I knew that. I should have said something about that. And I didn't. I just didn't. It did strike me as very interesting that the press release from the SBU said that at 4:44 a.m. local time, the first explosives were detonated at the Kerch Bridge. But then there were never any other explosions. So just like Russia is completely paranoid that there are other containers inside Russia waiting to unleash a drone hell, I think that it's very likely that other support columns of the Kerch Bridge are also mined. And the bridge will come down when Ukraine thinks it's in its interest to bring it down. What's next? I wish I knew, Mr. Marmite. I don't have a clue, man. The Ukrainians always make it more interesting than I ever think it will be. So Zoe Field says, if the Russians were to be stupid enough to use a tactical nuke, what could they possibly target? The obvious target is Kyiv, right? The fact that I, as an American, who have a very comfortable life back at home, am here living in Kyiv, despite this threat, tells you what I think about it. I don't think it's real at all. I'll tell you why, Zoe. because the analyst consensus is that none, zero, zip, zilch, nada, none of the Russian tactical arsenal works. I feel pretty good about that. Then there's the reality that if they upgrade to, let's say, an intercontinental ballistic missile, which seems incredibly foolish since they're right next door, but let's say that that's what they do. Say, something in the 100 kiloton range, a megaton, 1 megaton, which would vaporize about everything for a radius of 12 kilometers, a radius of 12 kilometers here in Kyiv, which is a big chunk of the city. It's my considered opinion that 43 minutes later, 500 years of Russian history comes to a fucking end. 43 minutes. That's it. So, bring it on, Russia. Exactly. Exactly. Okay. So now, the other question about rebellion inside Russia. The fact that one of these drivers was literally taken out in the street by an angry mob, and the police and security forces appeared to be unable to do anything about it or were complicit in it, says that things are unraveling. However, they're not unraveling in the way that we would want them to unravel. They're not unraveling with, oh, the Russians realize that they've been lied to and that they need to correct things. No. They've been told for so long that this is an existential threat to Russia and that Ukraine must be defeated, that when I watch the street interviews with Russians, they are all calling for full-on genocide here in Ukraine. They seem more adamant than ever that they must win. Thanks, Renvox. They seem more adamant than ever that they must win. Just last night on Soliev Live, there was a dude talking about how Ukraine is going to be split up into 4 or 5 different regions. The temporarily, and dig this, he's talking about not just the temporarily occupied territories becoming part of Russia, but the entire Black Sea coast to Odessa, just as it was in Imperial Russia, just as it was in Soviet Union. We take Black Sea coast to Odessa. Odessa is a Russian city. These fucking guys can't take Pokrovsk. And they think they're going to march to Odessa? Like, what world are they living in? And not only that, right? But then they want to they're going to install a puppet regime in Kyiv. And then there can be a Banderite part of Ukraine out by Lviv. They can have a little tiny slice of Western Ukraine where they can live their degenerate neo-Nazi lifestyle. It's crazy. Oh, I've never seen that, Brandon. ORC stands for Original Russian Citizen. Exactly the same with Germany in 1945. Does anybody remember, what the hell, Baghdad Bob? Was that his name? Was that what they called him, Baghdad Bob? Anyway, there was a dude in Iraq at the end of the invasion of Iraq who was saying every day that they would be victorious, that the Americans were on the run, the coalition forces would never take Iraq, yada, yada, yada. It took the United States and its allies 3 weeks to take Iraq, after it had been through a 10-year war with Iran where neither side could make any progress. They were living this nightmare attritional warfare for 10 years, just like the Ukrainians have been living for the last 3. So I'm not worried about nukes. I don't think you should be either. But I do think you should be aware that Russia is spending millions of dollars this summer to convince you that you should be afraid of nukes. We know that there is a Russian disinformation campaign on right now that is intended to convince people in the West that Russia is ready for nuclear war and to make you afraid. So be aware of that. Are the Kerch Bridge strikes symbolic, or is there a real attempt to destroy the bridge permanently? Dude, I definitely believe that these are real attempts to destroy the bridge permanently. But the bridge is massive. Did you see my video on it? Where we were looking at the support columns? The support columns are each section of the bridge has 2 10-foot thick, about 3 meter thick, concrete columns that are embedded into this huge concrete platform, which is then stood up on dozens of long supports that are embedded down in the seafloor, right to the bedrock. You need a very specific kind of weapon for that. You need a tandem bunker buster warhead of a particular size. And you know what? Ukraine doesn't have that because nobody has given it to them. Do you know what meets the requirements? Taurus missiles. And I saw something briefly about that today that I wanted to go look it up, where it looks like Germany, instead of giving Ukraine Taurus, has given them the technology to build their own, is what it looks like. But don't quote me on that. That's just going off the headline, and we all know that's the worst source you could have, right? So you need a tandem bunker buster, right? A tandem, there's an initial warhead, a unitary warhead, that punches a hole, let's say, into that 10-foot thick concrete pile, and then immediately behind it, there is another large charge. So the first one makes the hole, the second one goes into the hole and makes it bigger. And that's what you need, and Ukraine doesn't have those weapons. So they have settled for crippling the bridge. The bridge is no longer functional for military purposes. There is only one lane of car traffic open, 3 hours one way, 3 hours the next. And now it appears that after this strike, the rail bridge is completely unusable. It is worth pointing out that the head of the Crimean Tatars, which is Ukraine's native indigenous people in Crimea, who, by the way, have voted to stay with Ukraine and endorse Ukrainian citizenship and being part of Ukraine. And this head of the Crimean Tatars posted a video yesterday telling Russians in Crimea to get out now while they can. That the life expectancy of the bridge is very short. Now, if that bridge goes down and you are a tourist in Crimea, which, believe it or not, that's a real thing because the Russians are so deeply in denial of the world that they are creating every day. If you are a tourist in Crimea and the bridge goes down, you've got a 10.5-hour drive just to get to Rostov-on-Don, through occupied territory, through Zaporizhia, through Melitopol, through Mariupol, finally into the relative safety of Rostov-on-Don. 10.5 hours by car if you can find the gas to get you there, because you're going through the occupied territories. Very dangerous. Very, very dangerous. So it remains to be seen what's going to happen with the bridge. But I want to assure everybody, it's my opinion, that we can trust the Ukrainians to take that bridge down at the time that it is most conducive to their long-term goals in this war, the defeat of Russia. Oh man, I forgot I had a joke about bridges. Because we were talking about the bridges coming down and all the bridges coming down, right? And I was going to say, so it turns out Zelensky does have cards. He's been playing bridge. Anyway. That's a fair point, Seawolf, right? Then the Russian people get to see the devastation that their country has caused. Okay, it's 5 minutes to the top of the hour, and we started late, so I'm going to hang out a little bit. Plus, it's my anniversary. But before we do anything official, let me thank the sponsor of tonight's live, Dawn, who became a first-time sponsor recently. Very grateful. Then Little Red is going to be our sponsor on Monday, and then Fitz will be on Tuesday and Wednesday, along with another new guy, Carr. Carr? Is it Carr? It's like a Nordic name, K-A-R-E. It's a man's name. It's not my birthday. It's the 2-year anniversary of this channel. Guys, if you had ever told me at any point in my life that I would end up spending 2 years in Ukraine on TikTok, I would have told you to take your Thorazine. That's crazy. But this 2 years has gone by incredibly quickly. Hey, Kath Brown. Thanks. It's really, travel is so important for growth, let's say. When I think of the number of misconceptions that I had when I came here, the level of ignorance that I brought with me, and what I have learned in these 2 years, in large part thanks to guys like you, right? Like Steve there, my buddy Steve Kennedy, who sent me that video that might be of an failed Oreshnik, right? Or a guy who never comes to the lives, Polino. He's in Slovakia, if I'm not mistaken. Good guy. He's on top of things. We're always talking about interesting things. First see the first post having a pony. Steve, I gotta tell you, I don't know what that means. Travel broadens the mind, as Mom always said. Thanks, Betsy. Hey, Betsy. Oh, no, that's Betsy, not Betty. Hi, Betsy. Quiet night so far, Roy Daniels. A guy who is supposed to know told me it was not going to be. So we'll see. There's Chris Carter, everybody. And we might as well all thank Chris Carter, because Chris Carter has been a stalwart supporter of this channel since the very beginning. I want to say, Chris, you were like the 5th Patreon supporter or something like that. I'm not sure what that was. That was weird. It can't be a train because it stopped. The trains go on and on and on. But I don't think it could be anything incoming because we haven't had an air raid alert. So I don't know what that was. Oh, a little Cockney rhyme, huh? Oh, pardon. How are the Ukrainians doing the past few months? Is morale still good? I hope. I think eventually win. The last week has been a major morale boost for the Ukrainians. And last night didn't mean a thing to anybody that lives here. I mean, except for the few people who suffered personal tragedies. For the rest of us, we've all been through this a dozen times this year alone. So there is it just doesn't work. How many times are the Russians going to repeat the same things with them not working and expect to get different results? It's crazy. So Lars, that's a real thing, right? I assume you're saying that because you know about that. Fighter bomber, who's a pro-Kremlin, pro-Russian aviation Telegram channel, has reported that the pilots, ground crews, and mechanics for all the heavy bomber fleet have been told to build shelters, drone-proof shelters for the bombers, and to do it at their own expense. Well, they don't have to do it at their own expense. If they can scavenge the materials to do it, they can use scavenged materials. So the Russian MOD has basically said to the pilots and crews who just likely lost the planes that they fly, what we want you to do is go out and steal everything you need to build a protective cover for the planes that are left and then build it. Oh, and by the way, if it falls over and damages our plane, we're going to take the money out of your pocket. Can you imagine? I mean, can you imagine living in a world where you, as a trained fighter pilot, are now being told that it's your job to build sheds, to spend your money on it, and if they fall down, you're going to pay for it? It's insanity. But that's how desperate the Russian government is. They can't even afford sheds for their planes. It's going to be cope cages. It's cope cages for heavy bombers. It's ridiculous. Yep, Zoe's heard this story too. It's wackadoodle. It's cuckoo bananas. It's unhinged, off the hook, crazy, insane, mental. It just does not end with the Russians. I mean, you can see why immigrants are just flocking to Russia these days, right? Upgrading from old tires. Yeah, the tires did not prove to be very effective, except, now I'm not entirely certain that this is true, but it does seem to be the case in most of the videos. If you watch the videos, you notice that at some of the air bases where they use the tires, right, to retard drone attacks, the drones only struck the bombers with tires, which all, by the way, had full tanks of gas and went up like a torch. Is it possible? I mean, I know it's possible, but is it possible that the Russians only put tires on the planes that flew, which meant that the Ukrainians knew exactly which planes to hit and not to waste any time on planes that were currently being cannibalized for parts and would never fly again? Because none of the Tu-22s at Belaya that had no tires on them were hit. And you know what? They also didn't have engines. They're there for parts. None of them have moved since 2013 or something like that. They're just there for parts. Betsy, to the best of my knowledge, there were no casualties in these attacks. If there were, the Russians aren't saying. So no pilots were lost in Operation Spiderweb. Yeah, right? Like, why put tire on plane? It no fly. It no fly. Why put tire on plane? It no fly. Protect plane fly. They're putting dumplings on the wings now. And dimples on the cockpit. Did they put tires over the planes that were painted on the tarmac? No, they painted tires on those. According to Denis Davidov, the AWACS that were hit were not in flying condition. There's some disagreement in the community on that. There's also disagreement about how many they had that were flying before this operation. There are some analysts who believe that one of the two A-50s that were hit was the last remaining A-50 that flew. Maybe. Because that's a changing number. We believe that an A-50 that was being repaired, getting airworthy at the Rostov repair hangar, was actually targeted and hit inside the hangar about 8 months ago. Like, this is not recent news at all. But it's possible that that one was flight worthy and it was eliminated, but not everybody thinks it was eliminated. So we don't really know whether or not that plane is still out there or still works or it doesn't. We really don't know. Most analysts seem to agree that Russia has between 4 and 7 A-50s left, and that it's likely that only 1 to 4 of them are airworthy in any way. The rest are all being cannibalized for parts. And Dennis probably pointed out that the planes that he was talking about didn't have engines in them. That's how he knew, right? And now, I don't know that to be true of the 2 that were hit. I'm just saying that of the ones that were on the runway, you can pretty clearly see, even as an amateur, which ones don't have fucking engines. Juicy targets regardless, I agree. Will China send planes in bits in secret? I don't know, man. I really don't know. I think the psychological impact of the operation is maybe more impactful on the Russians. Oh, it's a morale destroyer. It absolutely is. I mean, I think that's one of the reasons why the Sumy advance has run out of steam. I think the Russians are freaking out. As well they should be. Heard the tires on the wings were supposed to confuse the AI drones, obviously failed. Yeah, there's different theories about the tires. One is that it's supposed to confuse the AI, right? So the AI does a photographic recognition sequence where it compares, it outlines and maps the detours and contours, the details and contours of a physical object in real space. And then it compares that against a template of known and acceptable targets. And if there's too much of a deviation in the form, it disregards it as a potential target, as I understand that technology. These drones were actually trained, the AI component was trained at the Air Museum in Poltava here in Ukraine, where they have Tu-22s, Tu-95s to train the AI, right? They use them to train the AI. That meant that because remember, these were all first-person view drones, but they were being operated from thousands of miles away. Clearly, there were repeaters built into the containers. That's how they were able to do that. It's the only reasonable, or a repeater was stationed nearby. It's the only way for that to work. There are reports coming out of the SBU that some of the drones did lose contact with their FPV pilot and had to finish the mission autonomously based on their AI training. That is amazing. That is amazing. So there's two schools of thought on the tires. One is that they confuse the AI. The other is just that the drones bounce off them. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. I don't know. Okay. It's about 10 past 1, guys. Me too, Toaster Fort. I am really hoping that the Russian people wake up and have a 1917 moment and just walk home, please. Just go home to your wives, your families. Go, have a good life, but get the fuck out. Don't hold back. I believe that Ukraine is already set to do it again. I think that there are more containers in Russia, and when things die down a little bit with the truck scare, they're going to release those drones and they're going to plunge Russia back into paranoia and chaos. I absolutely believe that. Now, that doesn't make me right? This could easily be it. The whole thing is wrapped up and done. But that's kind of what I think, Jan, yeah. Oh, Chris, thank you, pal. I hope I'm right, too. I'm probably not. I'm wrong all the time. Just ask my ex-wife. Okay. Guys, final thoughts, final questions, anything? Seriously, Ethelred, you're not wrong. That's more likely, Zoe, is that the Ukrainians have Zoe Field. Sorry, I know some fields. I know it doesn't matter. It's stupid. You're not related to them. We're not in the coffee shop in my hometown. What am I thinking? I just lost that last thing I was responding to. I'm so sorry. Yes, the Ukrainians could have something completely different up their sleeves. In fact, that is far more likely, as I am constantly being surprised by the Ukrainians. The Ukrainians aren't going to mess with North Korea. That's a waste of time. Russia's the only thing that matters right now. Fitz, my ex-wife knows nothing about food. She's a vegetarian. Why do you think I divorced her? Why do you think I can cook? I don't think so, Seawolf. I think I'm going to pass on that. I can already guess what he said. So Altered Carbon, since Sunday, I've been hearing this complaint a lot, that there are lots of Russian bots out there spreading misinformation. But my videos are remarkably free of them. It's like they finally have been trained to not bother coming here because they don't make any money. I delete their comments. There's no rubles here for them. I don't melt down. They don't get at me. I take their twisted logic and twist it straight. So I am amazed by the lack of trolls in my comments this week. That's not because I'm deleting everything. It's because they're not here. Night, Uncle Christopher. Thank you. Sarge, when this war is over, I delete half a dozen social media accounts and Peter Alexievich disappears forever. There is no reason to remember me. Ukraine always had the cards, Pingu. Always had the cards. Make no mistake. All right. Big thanks to Dawn, who is the sponsor of this live. Big thanks to Nightshade, who has the Peters Peeps group on the Book of Faces. Big thanks to Lars, who has the Discord server. And Jay and Travis, the moderators, who have stuck with us through these 2 years. Really appreciate everything. Thank you, Annette. Guys, please follow. If you don't follow the channel, please follow here. It's my 2-year anniversary, and I started this live with, I think, if I'm not mistaken, 170 away from 40,000. And it would be nice to wake up in the morning and have 40,000 followers going into my 3rd year of doing this. Truth hurts. You are not wrong. Good night, Andrea. Thank you. Night, Altered Carbon. Guys, we've got 2 lives left for sponsorship next week. If anybody wants to sponsor a live, the PayPal's in the description. If you haven't joined the Patreon yet, consider joining the Patreon, please. It's the Patreon that provides my bread and butter and absolutely makes it possible for me to be here. But it's the live sponsorships that pay the rent and pay the bills and that kind of thing. So a trilogy, boy, you guys give me credit for having an attention span that I do not. But I appreciate it. Thank you, Annette. Good night, G2. Good night, Truthful. Good night, Dawn. Thank you so much. Good night, everybody. Make it a great day.